Hey everyone, ready to really get into it with time management. Like seriously, deep dive into it.
Sounds intense.
It is, but in a good way, I promise. We're tackling Thibaut Meurisse's Master Your Time today. And right off the bat, this book is different.
Different good or different?
Different good, thankfully. It's not the usual do more faster stuff.
Right. It's not just about cramming tasks in. It's like bigger picture thinking.
Exactly. It's more what kind of life do I want and how does time fit into that?
So living well, not just scheduling well, right?
Totally. And one of the things I found so cool is how it talks about personal energy
Oh
cycles.
yeah, most productivity advice is all to-do lists and hacks, not the energy behind it.
Right. So what's the book's take on that?
Meurisse breaks it down into 6 phases, and each one you got to do different stuff.
Hmm.
It's about knowing when you're naturally good at focusing, being creative, or just needing to chill.
So like I'm a morning person, I should schedule hard stuff then, not fighting my natural rhythm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The book even gets into sleep, food, exercise, the foundations, not just time tricks.
Makes sense. It's the whole you, not just squeezing out more hours. But honestly, my struggle is procrastination. I know what to do, but
We've all been there. This book actually dives into 4 big reasons why we procrastinate.
hit me with them. What's the first one?
Lack of clarity. Sometimes we put stuff off because we haven't even really thought about the task.
Like I know I should update my website, but I haven't actually figured out what needs updating.
Exactly. The book says, ask yourself, why is this important? What if I don't do it? Get specific.
Whoa, just thinking that way already feels different. What are the other reasons?
Second one's motivation. We think we got to wait for it, but the book says it's the result of action.
Oh man, I'm so guilty of that. Waiting for inspiration to strike.
It's more like take the action, then the motivation kicks in. It's a snowball effect.
Just start and the motivation will follow.
Bingo. And sometimes breaking it down into tiny steps is all it takes to get going.
Okay, that's helpful. But what about the fear of messing up? That gets me too.
Third reason, fear of not being perfect. That's a big one for lots of folks.
I have so many unfinished projects because I was too scared to get it perfect on the first try.
Totally normal to feel that, the book says. But the key is focusing on progress, not perfection.
Yeah, because everything can always be improved upon later, right?
Exactly. And the final procrastination culprit, feeling overwhelmed.
Ugh, every Monday morning for me.
The book's advice is simple. Break it down. Smaller chunks, prioritize list, make it doable.
Makes sense. This is all already clicking for me. It's not just time, it's energy, mindset. It's like a whole different way of thinking about productivity, right?
Totally.
Mhm.
It's less about tricks and more about like aligning your actions with who you are. And that brings us to how Master Your Time looks at time itself. It's kind of mind-bending.
Yeah, we've all read time management stuff, but this book goes deeper, right? How so?
It challenges how we see time, the past, the future. The book says those can actually mess us up right now.
Hold on, explain that. How can thinking about yesterday or tomorrow mess up today?
We dwell on regrets, or we get anxious about what might happen. That steals energy from now.
So those thoughts are basically time wasters, too.
In a way, yeah. The book gives ways to reframe how we think about past and future, so they empower us instead of holding us back.
Oh, I gotta hear this. Give me those strategies.
For the past, it's about learning from it, but not letting it define you. It's about letting go.
I love that quote. You can't start the next chapter if you keep rereading the last one.
Perfect example. It's acknowledging the past, but moving on. And for the future, it's about vision.
Vision, as in daydreaming about my perfect life.
Not just daydreaming, but really
Right.
visualizing yourself achieving goals, feeling the success.
Interesting. I've always been skeptical of visualization. Does it actually work?
It's like a mental training ground. When you visualize, your brain starts believing it's possible. That boosts your confidence to take action.
So it's like building a mental roadmap to success.
Exactly. And tying back to the micro-life idea, each day becomes a step towards that bigger vision. You're creating the future one day at a time.
Okay, I'm seeing how it all fits together now. But even with all this new thinking about time, there's still that feeling of, I don't have enough time. How does the book deal with that?
Well, first off, it challenges us to replace that phrase with something more honest.
Because I'm definitely guilty of saying I don't have time for things I actually want to do.
Right. So instead of that, try saying, I have a lot on my plate right now, or, it's not a priority at the moment.
So acknowledging your current situation, but not shutting down the possibility altogether.
Exactly. It's about owning your choices. And it starts with knowing where your time actually goes.
Ooh, that's a scary question. I'd rather not know.
But facing that is key. Are you scrolling social media when you could be working towards a goal? It's about being honest and making conscious choices.
You're right. Sometimes those time wasters are just avoidance tactics.
Once you see that, you can reclaim that time for what matters. So how do we align daily actions with long-term goals?
That's the million-dollar question.
The book suggests finding tasks that are both exciting and aligned with your values.
The sweet spot where passion and purpose meet.
Exactly. If you're not excited, it'll feel like a chore. Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, right?
Totally. But what if you're stuck in a rut, afraid to try new things?
Got to step outside that comfort zone. That's where the real growth happens.
The magic happens outside your comfort zone.
You got it. And when you truly connect with your values, it doesn't feel like making time. It flows naturally. But what about when it really feels like there's just not enough time, even with all this?
Oh, I feel that constantly.
Master your time goes beyond just it's about multiplying time, creating abundance, even when you're stretched thin.
Wait, how do you multiply time? That sounds like science fiction.
No time bending needed. It's about strategy. One big one is delegating.
Delegating. I'm a control freak. That's hard.
I get it. But think about all you do. Could someone else handle some of it even better than you?
I guess I could hand off some things. But how do you choose what to delegate?
Tasks that drain you or that aren't your strengths. Like, are you amazing at ideas but terrible with details?
Ooh, that's EE. I'm horrible with numbers. So find someone who loves numbers for that stuff.
Precisely. There are people who can support you where you struggle. Virtual assistants, specialists, even friends helping with errands.
Okay, so it's not about giving up control, it's about focusing on what you're best at.
Exactly. Which frees you up for the stuff that truly matters. Another big time multiplier is investing in learning.
Spending time to save time seems counterintuitive.
But think about it. Every new school shortens the learning curve for future tasks.
Like learning to code properly the first time instead of spending months doing it badly myself.
Exactly. It might feel like an upfront cost, but it pays off hugely in the long run. And it ties into that mastery mindset we mentioned earlier.
Remind me what that's all about.
It's seeing learning as a journey, not a destination. Being okay with imperfection and focusing on getting better over time.
Sounds less stressful already.
Right. And it's got 3 parts: repetition, fundamentals, and being open to always learning more.
Break down those for me. What's mastering repetition all about?
Practice, practice, practice. Doing something over and over till it's second nature.
Like learning guitar. My fingers were so clumsy at first, but now it feels natural.
That's it. And it works for anything, not just physical stuff. Writing, speaking, even making coffee.
Okay, repetition makes sense. What about those fundamentals?
Like building a house. You need a solid foundation first. Right.
Can't just slap on the roof and hope for the best.
Exactly. Fundamentals are the building blocks. Skip them, and you'll just create problems later on.
Got it. Strong foundation, practice consistently, and what was that third part?
Always be learning. That growth mindset. You never arrive. There's always something new to discover.
I love that. So repetition for skill, fundamentals for understanding, and an open mind for growth.
Nailed it. But even with all this, we still get bogged down. That's where the 80-20 rule comes in. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, absolutely. Love that rule. 80% of results come from 20% of effort.
The book is all about using that. Finding the high-impact tasks, the ones that really move the needle.
I know that in theory, but it's so easy to get lost in the busy work.
Right. The book has some good tips for this, though, like schedule your hardest stuff for your most productive hours.
I'm a morning person, so I try to do my deep thinking work before lunch.
Smart. Then eliminate or delegate the low-impact stuff, the things that don't really matter.
There's probably a lot I could cut out, if I'm honest.
And lastly, learn to say no to requests, to obligations, to anything that doesn't align with your goals.
The hardest one for me, but I'm working on it. Okay, we've covered a ton about how to use our time. But sometimes life just feels chaotic no matter what.
That's where focus comes in. And remember that 5 or 10 years from now question.
Yeah, if I keep doing this, will it matter in 5 years? It's like a reality check.
Exactly. It cuts through the noise, helps you make conscious choices about everything, not just tasks, but how you spend your time overall.
This has been mind-blowing. We've gone deep on how we think about time, how to multiply it, how to choose what matters.
And there's still more to come. In the next part, we'll tackle those sneaky focus killers and how to reach that flow state where time melts away. Welcome back, everyone. So, before we get into those time-multiplying hacks and focus killers, let's circle back to something we touched on earlier, that whole idea about how we perceive time.
Yeah, Master Your Time really digs into that. And honestly, it's kind of trippy. Like, how can changing how I think about time actually help me manage it better?
Well, think about it. How often are you stuck in the past, replaying mistakes, or worrying about stuff in the future that hasn't even happened yet?
Ugh, all the time. Past regrets, future anxieties. It's exhausting.
Exactly. And the book says all that mental time traveling drains our energy, keeps us from being present in NW. And that's where real productivity comes from.
So it's not about ignoring the past or future, but finding a better way to, like, relate to them.
You got it. Master Your Time gives some strategies for reframing how we think about it all.
Okay, lay it on me. What are those strategies?
For the past, it's about learning, sure, but not letting it define you. Forgiveness, letting go of what's not serving you anymore.
Man, that's easier said than done, especially when you've made some big mistakes.
It's definitely a process, but the key is shifting from dwelling to using it as a lesson. What did you learn? How can that make you better now?
So acknowledge it, but don't let it hold you back. What about dealing with the future then?
Meurisse is big on visualization, projecting the future you want and then making a plan to get there.
Wait, so I should just sit around daydreaming about my perfect life?
Not quite. It's more about vividly imagining yourself achieving those goals, feeling that success. It creates motivation.
I've always been skeptical about visualization. Does it really have that much power?
There's actual research behind it. When you visualize, your brain starts to believe it's possible, which makes you more likely to take action.
So it's like creating a mental blueprint for what you want to achieve. I can kind of see that.
And remember that micro-life idea we talked about? It ties in here too. Each day is a building block towards that bigger vision. You're literally making the future, one day at a time.
Wow, okay, my mind is kind of blown right now. But even with all this, sometimes it just feels like there are not enough hours in the day. How does the book handle that feeling of being constantly time crunched?
Well, the book says we need to be more mindful of the language we use. Like instead of saying, I don't have time, we should.
Because I catch myself saying that all the time for things I actually wanted to do even.
Right. So instead, try something like, I have a lot on my plate right now, or it's not a priority at this moment.
So acknowledging your current situation, but not closing the door completely.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership, right?
Yep.
And that starts with honestly seeing where your time goes.
Ooh, scary but true. I probably spend way too much time scrolling social media.
We all do.
Hmm.
But the point is, once you see it, you can choose differently. So then the question becomes, how do we make sure we're using time for what truly matters, those long-term goals?
That's the million-dollar question right there.
The book has a simple but powerful suggestion. Find tasks that are both exciting to you and aligned with your values.
That sweet spot where your passion and purpose overlap.
Exactly. If you dread it, it's going to be a constant struggle. Do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. There's truth to that.
Absolutely. But what about when you're stuck, doing the same old things, afraid to try new stuff?
You got to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Stepping outside that comfort zone, that's where the real magic happens.
It's cliche, but so true. Okay, so when you're truly living by your values, it stops feeling like forcing yourself to do stuff. It becomes more natural. But what about when it really feels like there just isn't enough time, no matter how aligned you are?
This is where Master Your Time gets really interesting. It talks about time multiplication, creating more abundance, even when you're stretched thin.
Hold on, multiplying time. That sounds impossible.
It's not about bending the laws of physics, it's about using what you have more effectively. And one of the biggest things is delegating.
Ugh, delegating. I'm such a control freak. It's hard for me to let go.
I hear you. But often, that need for control is what's holding us back. Think about everything you do. Are there tasks someone else could do just as well? Maybe even better.
Yeah, I guess there's some things I could probably hand off. But how do you decide what to delegate?
Start with things that drain your energy or that aren't your strengths. Like maybe you're a big picture person, but terrible at details.
Ooh, that's me. Numbers are my nemesis. So I should find someone who's a numbers whiz and let them handle that stuff.
Exactly. There's so many talented people out there who can support you where you struggle. Virtual assistants, specialists, even friends helping with errands, it all adds up.
Okay, so it's not about giving up control entirely. It's about being strategic, focusing on what you do best and letting others handle the rest. Makes sense.
And that frees you up for what truly matters.
Yeah.
Right. Another time multiplication strategy is investing in learning.
So, spending time to save time sounds kind of backwards.
But it works. Think of it like this. Every new skill you learn shortens the learning curve for future tasks.
Like, if I took the time to really learn how to code, I could build my own website instead of spending months fumbling through it and getting nowhere.
Exactly. It might seem like an extra expense up front, but you save so much time and energy in the long run.
Okay, I can see that. And you mentioned this ties into that mastery mindset thing, right?
It totally does. It's all about embracing the journey of learning and improvement.
So instead of getting hung up on being perfect right away, it's about getting better over time.
Exactly. And there are three key parts to this: repetition, mastering the fundamentals, and always being open to learning more.
Okay, break those down for me. What's mastering repetition all about?
It's practice, practice, practice. Doing something over and over, even when it's tedious, until it becomes second nature.
Like, I remember when I first started playing piano, my fingers felt so awkward and clumsy. But after practicing every day, it started to feel more natural.
And that's the power of repetition. It works for anything. Writing, public speaking, even making the perfect cup of coffee. The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Repetition makes sense. What about mastering the
It's
fundamentals?
like building a house.
Mm,
You need a solid foundation before you can start adding walls and a roof, right?
I can't just skip to the fancy stuff and hope it all holds together.
Exactly. Mastering the fundamentals means taking the time to learn the basic principles, the building blocks of any skill. Skip that, and you're just setting yourself up for problems later.
Okay, so repetition for building the skill, fundamentals for understanding the underlying principles, and what was that third part again?
Always be learning. That's the growth mindset. Recognizing that you never really arrive, there's always more to learn, more to explore.
Oh, I love that. So it's not just about getting good at something, it's about always staying curious and open to new ideas.
Exactly. And speaking of getting things done, we can't forget about one of the most powerful productivity principles out there, the 80-20 rule. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big fan of the 80-20 rule. That idea that 80% of our results come from just 20% of our efforts.
And Master Your Time emphasizes using this principle to focus on those high-impact tasks, the ones that really move the needle.
In theory, I totally get it. But in practice, it's so easy to get bogged down in all the little things and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Right. But the book gives some good tips for actually applying the 80-20 rule to your life. Like first, figure out when you're most productive and schedule your most important tasks for those times.
I'm definitely a morning person, so I try to tackle the tough stuff before lunch when my brain is firing on all cylinders.
Smart move. Second, get ruthless about eliminating or delegating those low-impact activities, those things you do out of habit or obligation, but that don't actually contribute much to your goals.
Oof. I'm sure I'm guilty of doing a lot of those. I'll have to take a closer look at my to-do list.
We all have them. And finally, practice saying no to requests, to obligations, to anything that doesn't align with what you truly want to achieve.
That one's so hard, but I'm trying to get better at it. Okay, so we've talked about how to multiply our time, how to choose what matters most, but sometimes, no matter how hard I try, life just feels chaotic and overwhelming. How does the book address that feeling?
Well, that's where focus comes in. And remember that 5 or 10 years from now question.
If I keep doing this, will it matter in 5 years? Yeah, that one's a game changer.
Exactly. It helps cut through the noise and make more conscious choices, not just about your tasks, but about how you spend your time overall.
I've been trying to apply that question to my life more, and honestly, it's pretty amazing how much clarity it brings.
It's like a filter for your decisions,
Yeah.
right? And it's not about being rigid or inflexible. It's about being intentional, about making sure your actions align with your long-term goals and values.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. We've really dug deep into the book's ideas about time perception, about how to multiply our time, about choosing what truly matters.
And we're just getting started. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll uncover those sneaky focus killers that sabotage our productivity and reveal the secrets to achieving that elusive flow state.
Okay, so we're back, ready to tackle those focus killers, right? And then how to actually get into that flow state everyone's always talking about.
Flow state is like peak productivity zen. But yeah, first, got to deal with the stuff that sabotages our focus.
The book calls out four main culprits: task switching, interruptions, those pesky notifications, and then just unnecessary tasks in general.
It's like the four horsemen of the distraction apocalypse, right? But Master Your Time has some good strategies for fighting back.
Okay, so let's take them one by one. First up, task switching. Why is that so bad for focus anyway?
It's like every time you switch, your brain has to reboot, basically. It
Yeah.
takes time and energy.
Yeah, it's like you never really get fully into anything.
Exactly. Like driving with one foot on the gas, one on the brake. You're not going to get very far.
Ooh, that's a good analogy. Mental whiplash.
And it's not just the time lost, it's the quality of work, too. You're never fully immersed, so more mistakes happen.
So the key is to block off time for one task at a time and resist that urge to multitask.
Bingo. Now, interruptions. Those are a beast of their own.
Oh, tell me about it. Emails, phone calls, people stopping by. It's like my brain is constantly getting pulled in different directions.
The book is big on setting boundaries. Closed door, phone on D&D, even headphones to signal focus time.
Gotta love those noise-canceling headphones. But honestly, I need to get better at communicating my boundaries to coworkers, I think.
Yeah, that's key. Letting people know when you're available and when you need to be in the zone.
Okay, so we've got task switching, interruptions. What about notifications, those little red dots of doom?
Notifications.
Yeah.
Designed to hijack our attention. Every single one of them.
It's true. You look up and realize you just spent 20 minutes scrolling through Instagram when you were supposed to be working.
The book's advice is simple. Turn off everything that's not essential. Check email and social media at set times. Don't let them control you.
Take back that power. Okay, and lastly, those unnecessary tasks. How do we even identify those? They kind of blend in, you know?
They do. It's stuff we think we should do or have always done, but it's not actually moving us towards our goals.
I definitely have some of those lurking on my to-do list. Things that don't really matter anymore, but I haven't let them go.
The book says, be ruthless with your to-do list. Ask for each task. Is this really necessary? Can I delegate it? Can I just get rid of it altogether?
Love that. Declutter that list. Make space for what truly matters. Okay, so we've tackled the focus killers. Now, how do we get into that flow state? I'm ready to unlock that productivity superpower.
It's not magic, but it does take practice. Master your time. Give some steps. What do you think is most important?
Based on everything we've talked about, I'd say eliminating distractions is key. Got to have that space to focus.
Absolutely. But it's not just the external stuff. It's also what's going on in your head.
What do you mean?
It's about clearing mental clutter. Maybe meditation, mindfulness, anything that helps quiet your thoughts.
Ooh, so it's like creating a mental sanctuary for focus.
Love that. And having a clear goal for your work session is huge. What do you want to achieve? Knowing that helps direct your energy.
It's like having a destination before you start driving. Makes sense.
Then the task itself has got to be engaging, right?
Yeah.
Challenging enough to keep you interested, but not so hard. It's overwhelming.
That sweet spot between boredom and frustration.
Exactly. And lastly, the environment matters. A space that feels inspiring and energizing, however that looks for you.
So it's about setting the stage, both inside and out.
Awesome. Man, this whole deep dive into master your time has been incredible. I feel like I've got a whole new toolkit for, well, mastering my time.
That's what we were going for. And I hope you feel empowered to use these ideas in your own life. More time for what matters, less stress, and maybe even some flow state magic along the way. Totally. And listeners, we want to hear from you. What are your biggest time management struggles? Hit us up on social media. Let's keep this conversation going. After all, we're in this together.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Until next time, everyone.